Hey, what's up, guys? Tuki here, back again with another episode of my Florida Panthers franchise mode series right here on NHL 20. And today, first and foremost, we have some catching up to do. Sorry for the 2-day break in between videos. If you missed it, Saturday, there was a 16-hour stream on Twitch where we played NHL 92 all the way to NHL 20. You play a game, you win, you move on. Took me 14 hours, pretty damn good time. And then Sunday, there was supposed to be a video, and the audio done goofed. So now we're catching you up here. So obviously, we last ended this on a losing note. We lost in the Stanley Cup final in 6 games to the Dallas Stars. Heartbreaking as it may be. But it has set the stage now for a very, very interesting offseason. As again, Dallas would have won the Cup award-wise. McKinnon won the Art Ross, the Hart. The Norris went to John Carlson, Lady Bing to McKinnon. Alex Nylander won the Calder. Conn Smythe to Radulov, the Vezina to Darcy Kemper. Jennings to Bobrovsky. Masterton to Patrick Nemeth. San Jose's coach won the Jack Adams. The Selke to Bergeron. The Ted Lindsay and the Rocket Richard to Nathan McKinnon. And a quick look at the AHL most points, Drake Batherson. He was also league MVP. Chris Stewart scored the most goals. Blake Lizotte was the top rookie. Henry Jokiharju, the top defenseman. Vianney Vevalainen, top goaltender. And the MVP of the playoffs, the Hamburglar, Andrew Hammond. So what happened between then and now? Well, we went through the drafts, obviously. Now, there weren't any trades at the draft. I pretty much, there weren't any player trades at the draft. We had some interesting decisions to make as far as what we wanted to do. And ultimately, I decided to not trade for anybody at the time because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the money that we had, because there were some big names that we needed to decide on what we were going to do. So in the draft, we ended up with Carpenter, good old Tim Carpenter, medium top 477 overall. We got him with the 30th overall pick. I don't know how he fell to that point. We also picked up Ruslan Artukin in the early stages of the second round. So 2 really good defensemen to add. And we also added the Hungarian Lawrence Alos, who is going to take forever to develop if he ever does. And then forward-wise, we managed to pick up Bergqvist, Mikhail Bergqvist, 64 overall, medium top 9 in the third round. Schwint we already had. We also, Igor Voinov wasn't that good. So really, it was the 2 defensemen that we added into the mix. Now, you may have noticed certain names were missing from this team, and that was a big theme with what this episode would have been had I not had botched audio, is that Mike Hoffman and Evgeny Dadonov were both asking for a ton of money. And ultimately, I decided not to re-sign either of them. Now, a quick look at the free agents that have signed up to this point. Robin Lehner goes to Calgary, and of course, you'll see where some of the other big names have gone. But we're going to take a look at just how much these boys were paid. The LA Kings ended up with Mike Hoffman. We let go of Brian Boyle. He ended up moving on to Edmonton. And Dadonov went to Washington on a 3-year deal. As you see, we also signed a couple of goaltenders, Halak and Leonard to Calgary. Damn. I actually haven't looked at this full list yet, so I actually wanted to see if there were any other big names. Eric Gustafson to Ottawa, Eric Holla to Detroit. So to show you what Dadonov and Hoffman ended up with, and then I'll explain why I elected to let them go, because I do think it is the best move for us at the time. So Hoffman, $8.1 million for the next 4 years. Is that 4 years? That is 4 years. I thought it was 3 for a second. Is he worth $8 million for what he did last season? 68 points. In the playoffs, he was phenomenal. Is he worth that? Probably. I can admit that. He is probably worth it. The cheapest I could have possibly gotten him for is 7.5. Because he was willing to re-sign. Dadonov was not. So Hoffman at 8.1, and then Evgeny Dadonov, guarantee you got more. He did. Basically $9.3 million for the next 3 years. We were priced out. Flat out, we were priced out. And again, is Dadonov worth that based off of what he did last season and in the playoffs? Probably. He probably is. But then you get to looking at our cap situation. And again, easy mode for this would just be, get rid of Bobrovsky. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hold on to Sergei. And he actually bounced back up to an 86. We signed Pavel Francouz and Connor Ingram to help compete. Of course, we let go of Montembeault and Philippe DeRozier as well. So that's the current situation there. Defensively, we're still looking okay. Mackenzie Weegar's an RFA. Michael Matheson's overall is dropping, which is a frightening thing because, that contract could be an albatross. So we still have to wait and see what's going to happen with Mackenzie Weegar. But in terms of goaltending, we're okay. In terms of defense, we're looking okay. We need to see what happens with Weegar, and then we'll probably sign Carpenter and give him a chance out of the gates. But then forward-wise, you look at it, and it's like, okay, we have $14 million in space. Could we have signed Hoffman or Dadonov? Yes, there's no way we could have signed both. We also have a buyout penalty of $3.4 million, which hurts quite a bit. But you look at this team, Barkov, Huberdeau, Trocheck, Connolly. Who replaces Hoffman and Dadonov? Well, for me, I think it's worth giving Borgstrom and Tippett an opportunity this year to see what they can do. And then you look at Vetrano, Howard, and Achari, Mulligan, Skeevier, and Dryden Hunt, and that's your bottom six, and we're good to go. In theory, we're good to go. Letting the kids play and seeing if they can develop might not be the worst strategy. And the thing is, I'm a little bit afraid to commit a ton of money to someone like Dadonov and someone like Hoffman because Sasha Barkov is on a great deal, but it's up in 2 years. And keeping him is crucial. Jonathan Huberdeau is on a phenomenal contract. That's up in 3 years. The Yandel deal will be up. Trocheck's deal expires in 2 years. It's worth trying to get the kids to develop now because some of these contracts are going to hit us like a bag of bricks. And we don't want to commit money at the wrong time and then have to wheel and deal to get out of it. We're trying to play it safe. We're trying to play it smart. Not to mention, if we sign those two forwards, Mackenzie Weegar was gone 100%, and there's at least a chance that we get to keep him. Now, I did end that episode, the now lost episode, on the question of do we go after Taylor Hall or Mikhail Sergachev? Because both are still here. Now, Sergachev is an RFA, of course, but the question was, do I sign him to that contract right there? Tampa's priced out. They can't afford him even at that price. Do I give up a first and a third for Sergachev? Seems fair. But again, it is slightly cheap. That's a steal, obviously. It does seem slightly cheap to do the whole 1 year deal and get him for nothing. And then Taylor Hall, I offered him 1 year at $8 million. He wouldn't accept. Getting those players certainly would help this team. We'd have to move on from other players, though. And like I said, long term, it's worth trying to get the kids to develop now. Bringing in Taylor Hall gives us a good chance to win in this upcoming season, I would assume. Hall, Huberdeau, and Barkov, good God. But ultimately, is it worth signing Taylor Hall if it's going to hurt the development of players that we need to develop if we're going to be competitive for the duration of this series as opposed to just right now? Because we're going to have a chance to win multiple cups over the next few years as opposed to just, let's try to win within the next 2 to 3 years, guaranteed. We still might win anyway with how the sim engine works. And then with Sergachev, it's kind of the same thing where we already have too many top four defensemen. Adding another one into the mix, that's just going to cause more issues. So I left it on the note of do we sign either of these two? I still am so torn. Because the take advantage of the AI, wheel and deal part of me absolutely wants to make those moves. The other part of me is saying, hey, slow and steady. And slow and steady is not a bad way to go. That's not a bad way to go about this at all. So, it's really tough. It is. It is really tough to make a decision on what to do there. But like I said, saving some money. Sergachev long term would be one hell of a pickup. To take him away from a division rival in Tampa would be a great thing. And then if you look at who we'd have to move on, from a defensive standpoint, Matheson's going nowhere. We would probably, it would have to be Strawman. It would have to be Strawman, and even then, that contract might be tough to move without retention. We are kind of locked into the Strawman-Matheson contracts right now. And then Yandel's value is through the goddamn roof, which is crazy. He is a top 2 defenseman by the game's logic, is he not? Yeah, he is, so that's why. And he played like it last year. He absolutely did. We're going to keep an eye on the situation because I don't know exactly what I want to do. I really don't. We're also going to wait for certain prices to drop to see who else we can bring in, as we do have to fill out an AHL roster as well. So that catches you up on everything that happened in that last episode. But in terms of what happens here, and if we make a major signing free agent-wise, I simply don't know. Taylor Hall's still there. Like I said, we can bring him in for a year and be fine. But is that worth stunting the development of certain other skill players who could benefit very, very highly from the guys that we have in the top 6 right now? I think, especially with the morale system on, we could see some crazy development. I don't think I'm going to sign Taylor Hall. And I don't know if I'm going to sign Sergachev. I don't know if I am, because he's still going to be there when free agency rolls around. And then we could get him for even, for an even less expensive deal, which, It's always interesting with RFAs if we don't have set rules, right? Because if someone's like, okay, you get to sign Sergachev, but you have to sign him to what he wants, I would still do that. A first, second, and a third for Sergachev at, 7x3, that's still a steal of a contract. Although last year he wasn't phenomenal. And then in the playoffs, he was brutal for Tampa. He might not sim well. He might not. It's worth keeping an eye on. It is. It's worth keeping an eye on. I think for right now, though, let me double check here, because the goaltending situation is set. We're good on that front after signing Ingram and Pavel Francouz. And then again, we also have Bobrovsky, Dreger, and Bednard. Spencer Knight's not going to be signed yet. Defensively, like I said, in theory, our top 6 is set. So we have 4 other defensemen on roster. So yeah, we got to sign some defensemen here. Plus, we need a healthy scratch up top. So let's see who is still available. And again, we actually don't even know if we're keeping Mackenzie Weegar. But let's see who's available here. Let's just outright search two-way. Let's just outright search two-way. Who do we want to bring in? Alex Petrovich. We could bring Petrovich back to Florida. Why not? That works for me. Josh Brown, who I let go of, we'll actually bring him back. So again, we did let go of random people like Ryan Haggerty. We let go of Brown at first. So obviously quite a few of the AHLers. I don't think we actually re-signed any of the AHLers who weren't actually half-decent prospects. Is there another name here for a player that I like? Oh, Austin Strand. Why not? Former Seattle T-Bird. Just one of those players that I like in NHL, even though he's never really developed. Eric Ejelena. Gotta sign TJ Brennan. One of the greatest point-producing defensemen in AHL history. So that would bring us up to a decent 8. Anybody else? I'm not really looking. Chris Summers, yes. I own a Chris Summers Portland Pirates jersey. Game worn. Signed. Gotta sign my boy. You notice the theme with him and Brennan of signing former Portland Pirates, which should be the AHL affiliate right now, not this team. Boo, Springfield. Boo. Nerds. Hey, okay. Ooh. Oh, damn. Wow. Ottawa offers Mackenzie Weegar 5x5. Really? Holy crap. We'd get a first and a third for Weegar. Now, here's the thing. He's 26. He's a legitimate top 4 defenseman. He's solid. He was great for us last year on that second pairing. The 23 points is solid, but the plus 29, and then in the playoffs, 10 points and a plus 7. But 5x5. 5x5 for Weegar, when we do technically have kind of a need to move out a top 4 defenseman, because otherwise Stralman's third pairing next year. Is it worth signing Weegar to that? He hits, he blocks shots. That is a super tough call. Like, that is a really tough call because he was really good for us last year. Without power play time, too. Averaged 20 minutes of time per game. Still, though, 5x5 for a 26-year-old second pair defenseman. I don't know if I want to hold on to that. Whew. Big decisions. Remind me in 6 days, please. Remind me in 6 days. See, this is why I left the initial episode where I did. Because there are decisions to make. And yes, I know. Leave, let Weegar go. Sign Sergachev. Everyone wins. And yeah, if we want to take advantage of the AI, we can do that. Especially if we just sign Sergachev for a 1-year deal. Do we make Tampa pay the stupid tax for not signing him? Or do we give Tampa a first, second, and a third and sign Sergachev to what he wants? That could be done. And then again, we'd probably have to look at trying to move Anton Stralman before... Actually, when does that Stralman deal expire? As long as that expires before the Barkov deal is up. And then again, there's the Taylor Hall deal. I am much more on board with signing Sergachev than I am with signing Taylor Hall. Much more on board with that. Because again, I think trying to get Tippett and Borgstrom to develop is crucial for us. And if we play Tippett next to Barkov and Huberdeau, and play Borgstrom next to Trocheck and Brett Connolly, I think we're going to look good. I think we're going to look damn good. And Owen Tippett, I mean, that offensive awareness, just the offensive abilities in general, he can hang on that top line. At least we need to see if he can, in theory. Plus, he's a depth forward. We're going to want him in a skill role anyway. He's not going to do well on the third line. He's just not. We got to play him with skill players. But to take a look at the defense here, with Stralman, okay, that deal is up. That deal is up. This could work. We could go Yandel, Ekblad, Sergachev, Matheson, Stralman, and Carpenter, and let Mackenzie Weegar go. And then Stralman's deal is up, and that money can be used to help re-sign Sasha Barkov. I mean, trading Weegar and adding Sergachev to this defense, that's a hell of an upgrade. I would rather pay... hell, technically I could pay $500K more for Sergachev if we sign him to a 1-year deal, but even then, $2 million more to sign Sergachev, I'm down for that. Of course I am, and especially then too, we'll be looking at Ekblad and Sergachev once, Keith Yandel starts to drop. And I know a lot of people are probably saying too, hey, trade Keith Yandel right now. I mean, look at how ridiculous that value is. Think about the caliber of player you could bring in. But, Yandel's a beast. And again, I don't like to make a ton of changes to an initial roster. I do like to stick with the team somewhat. Why get rid of its identity immediately? So that's the issue. But I was down for keeping Mackenzie Weegar, but 5x5 from Ottawa, I don't think that's worth matching. I really don't. He was really good for us. But a first and a third, that's about right for his trade value, I suppose. If not a little bit better. And I suppose, too, we could see how Ottawa did last year. So, yeah, we have some big decisions to make, mainly whether or not we match the deal for Weegar, what we do with Sergachev, and again, there's even the outside, what do we do with Taylor Hall? Like, we could run Brett Connolly as a third liner, but that's just going to cause issues, I would imagine. And Brett Connolly was fine for us last year. So, as nice as it would be to sign Taylor Hall, if it makes sense to, I don't know if it makes sense to. But quickly taking a look, Ottawa was not good last year. Getting their first-round pick when they were a bottom 4 team, that could be huge. Let's take a look at their roster really quickly. And then, of course, Tampa, I'm cool with giving them draft picks because we should be fine, and we'd have Ottawa's right there to replace them. Let's look at this Sens roster. This is not going to be the longest episode in the world because these are decisions that I want you guys to be involved with for sure. So Ottawa, can we really expect you to be that much better this year? You have Tkachuk, of course. Bobby Ryan jumped up to an 86. White, Nemesnikov, Bodker, Tierney, Pajot, Brown, Balsers, Batherson, Anisimov, Schlappick. And they drafted Alex Holtz. And yes, for the record, I know draft recap-wise, you would have missed where people ended up. I'm sorry for that. I can take a look through eventually. But and then Thomas Chabot, Gustafsson, Zaitsev. I think it would be a mistake to not let Mackenzie Weegar go, especially, yeah, we have to. They only have Nilsson. We have to let Mackenzie Weegar go. We have to. So it's just the question of, do we also, in return, go after Mikhail Sergachev? And how cheap do we be? Do we sign him to the one-year deal now? Do we sign him to the one-year deal at the beginning of the season when we'd be able to get him for super cheap? Or do we sign him to the 3 years as to not be overly cheap, but we still bring in Sergachev on a pretty good contract? But yeah, I think Mackenzie Weegar has to go. And again, like I said, I mean, this season Matheson has to be a second pairing guy. It'd be Stralman who goes down to that third pair to play with Carpenter, more than likely, because I think I want to give Tim a chance. And if he doesn't make it, we can easily bring in somebody else for the third pairing. So Mackenzie Weegar's got to go regardless. It's just, do we bring in Sergachev or not? Just let Weegar go. Have the D be Yandel, Ekblad, Stralman, Matheson, Carpenter, and some other random third pairing guy that we could look to bring in because we do have cap space. And then, like I said, I just don't think bringing in Taylor Hall makes sense. I mean, it does because it's Taylor Hall, but Brett Connolly was strong last year. 61 points in the playoffs. Yeah, no, Brett Connolly doesn't deserve to get bumped down to the third line. And, I mean, in theory, does it make sense? I mean, we could go Barkov, Huberdeau, Hall, Trocheck, Borgstrom, Tippett, Vetrano, Connolly, Howryuk, Malgin, Achari, Hunt, and have Colton Skeevier be our depth forward. That does make sense, and that does sound really good. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? What do we do? Do we go after Taylor Hall? Do we go after Mikhail Sergachev? And especially with Sergachev being an RFA, how cheap do we be? And what do we do with Mackenzie Weegar, even though the answer is pretty damn clear? So, sorry for the abbreviated episode, but the next episode, we will make these decisions and we will begin the sim on Season 2. This team is going to be very interesting one way or another. I thank you for watching the episode and supporting the channel. Drop a like if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And a shout out to those friendos on Patreon. Thank you for your generosity. I will see you guys next time when this Panthers team, it's going to be an interesting team to look at one way or another.